any kind of act that's designed to delay or deprive you and me right now of getting full rights, that's the government that's responsible. And anytime you find the government involved in a conspiracy to violate the citizenship or the civil rights of a people, then you are wasting your time going to that government expecting redress. Instead, you have to take that government to the world court and accuse it of genocide and all of the other crimes that it is guilty of today.
So yeah, white people, if they go through all these measures and everything to oppress us and spend all of these huge amounts of money to oppress us, they should just let us go back to Africa. Um, that seems like the most immediate and humane and the correct thing to do, or option. Um, the way it worked is that the African Americans who choose to stay in America have that choice, and whatever African Americans choose to go over to Africa have that choice. It can be voted on, or perhaps paperwork, uh, application for it to go to Africa should is an option to get that done. Those who decide to stay in America just stay in their current condition, if they choose to live the way that they always been living, at that particular up to that particular time. However, those who choose to go to Africa should be given a generous amount of reparations, seeing as we're descendants of former slaves. Reparations is long overdue. It's the right thing to do. And in order to make sure that you have a white America, this is for you. It's to make sure that you don't have a huge African American population in your country, because it seems like that's a problem to you. That's why you're doing everything to either segregate us in prisons, or to shoot us in the street, or to just some way, whatever you can think of, to just get us out of your view. So I think that's a good thing for the majority of you, because I believe the majority of white people feel that way, especially those in power. And so, okay, so the the African American applicants who decide to go over to Africa now have to determine with the United States government and the governments of Africa and amongst themselves which countries to go to. Um, Perhaps we can start off with three countries, um, where the land is good, like, as good soil, minerally rich. It's in a country on the growth, or a country stable. Um, we should have housing built out there for us, based on family size. Um, so with the picking of the country, those will be the qualifications for that. Perhaps it can be more than three. That will be up to the nations of Africa, who will welcome their brothers and sisters from the United States. So those who want to go will get reparations. The travel there must also be safe and comfortable, safe and comfortable. Perhaps ships, cruise ships, or something like that, and plane. The Africans who choose to go could pay for their own way there. I mean, they're gonna have reparations, so that's not another um, tax or budget coming out of the government's budget is to pay for us to get there. So we should be able to pay our own way after receiving a generous and a fair amount in reparations, considering our financial influence on the growth of this country. Okay, where was I at? I had to take care of something, so where did I leave off? I okay, well, the three countries that should be agreed upon between the United States government and the black and the African Americans who choose to go over there should be fairly judged and voted on. The land that the black people in their homes of the land that they choose to go to, whatever country they have land within that country out of the three, um, with good soil, minerally rich, great housing, um, in a thriving city or wherever within that city or general area that they choose to go. So first we agree upon that those who want to go go, those who want to stay stay, and if you're one of the ones who want to stay, then you just stay. Simple as that. Whether or not you will receive reparations because you're still able to get government assistance, because there's no government assistance in very many African countries, if all. And so since it can be debated, if you should receive reparations since you're getting government benefits, because that's always been a crutch that they relied on when we ask for reparations is that we get government benefits. So because we won't be getting them, those who want to leave, we get reparations. It's very apparent, that and that's the plan I come up with. But the whole agenda of me explaining that was if white people don't want black people in their country, which is obvious, and in the climate that we live in today, when people are speaking openly and honestly about how they feel about themselves and other people and other races and religions, it's out there. And so this is a serious discussion that we should have as a country. It's no reason and it's not necessary for them to shoot us in the street. It's not necessary. It's not necessary that you jail millions of us up. It's not necessary. It's not necessary that you spend so much money shipping guns and drugs into our community, spend tons of money of going out of your way to propagandize our culture, trivialize our activities, considering we are who you created. So, um, like I said, those who want to stay, they can stay. Um, it's and it's no longer, not very much pretend, about this. I'm just surprised we haven't had this discussion because it's a lot of people in the United States government and in general, white society who probably who wouldn't object to that. They openly and they, if not openly, they consciously feel that yes, they wish black people were out of this country. And like Richard Spencer said, that slavery never happened. And he said that was a big mistake because now they have, he said that because now they have probably 50 million, 50, 60 million African Americans in their country and they want it back. They want it all white. That's why they say slavery was a mistake, not because they will have a conscience about doing it, just the fact that they should have saw in the long run if they let the black people continue to reproduce, our numbers would get greater and greater, and getting rid of us would be harder and harder. So that's why the United States government resorted to all forms and every method that they can think of to either kill you, make you sick, or destabilize you economically so that you can't grow and it's difficult for you to get out of poverty. They also make sure they jail a huge percentage of black men who otherwise would be out there with black women as their husbands and the father of their children. And so you destabilize the family that way. Then we come out with hip hop. It was a voice of revolution that got into the hands of white people, and now we have music that's talking about self-destruction and pretty much suicide, considering the things they're actually telling you to do in order to be a part of black culture. So, I mean, if you go through all that to show that you don't want a certain people in your country, black people should get the message like these motherfuckers don't want us here. Yet they don't have the right to kick us out without first assisting us in getting financially stabilized elsewhere. Because they rape in Africa too, so you're not going to send us from one hood to another hood. That's not reparations. So that's what I think is a good solution, because if there was some if some of our if our mother treated us like America treat the whole of black society, we wouldn't talk to our mother ever again, and she gave birth to us. But when it comes to America, too many of us are willing to just take the punishment for some reason, to normalize the abuse and the punishment and the murder, the slavery, the injustice in all areas of activity. So I don't know why anybody of their right and sound mind would want to stay in a situation where it's clear that you're going to continue to be um, hurt one way or the other. Don't know. Could be dependency. I was telling a friend that I believe that the majority of African Americans who want to stay here, even when they have the option to leave to Africa and get reparation money, is the majority of African Americans who are the most dependent on government assistance. Because many, if any, African country, I don't think they got like government assistance like welfare and shit. You know what I'm saying? So that's probably why, in parts of Africa it's very poor, because there's no government assistance in that country. There's no safety net, due to economic sanctions and corrupt leaders. So once they found that out, they changed their mind pretty quick, because they won't have that safety net that they're used to. So they're opting to stay on government welfare in America and be dependent on white people, like I said, who don't want you here. The ones who make the laws, even some of the ones you work with. So, but that'll be their decision. I can't worry too much about what other people feel. I'm not judging them. Everybody will has their right to make that decision, and I will wish you the best, but I still don't understand it, and I won't try to wrap my head around it because I'll go insane. Cause that's some insane shit right there. Um, did you all hear about that speech Donald Trump gave yesterday? Now, the police, I think it's a huge police union or department or something like that, and he basically said that he approved of police brutality. Let me see if I can find that video. Uh, okay, there you go. Close. Here it is. Here it is. Let me see. Oh, I can't even skip this ad. Let me make sure I'm still recording.
They have transformed peaceful parks and beautiful, quiet.
Let me see. Let me fast forward and make sure before I
We will find you.
let the whole thing
We will
go.
arrest you. We will jail you back at the paddy wagon. You just see him thrown in, rough. I said, please.
Okay. Yeah, it's at the 54-second mark. The video only about, almost 2 minutes. So I'm going to start over and give you some context of, why I think it's important to pay attention, because it's clear that we have a president who, for whatever reason in his mind, is approving of and even sanctioning police brutality against suspects. Let's make that clear. Police more often simply find suspects, not the actual criminal, because you don't know many of times if this person who you have a warrant to go and get, or if you don't have a warrant and you just see someone on the streets like they often do, that they don't know if that's actually the person they're looking for. That's why they do fingerprints and investigations. So he's also legitimizing and sanctioning the abuse of simple just suspects, those who may be very well innocent. So yeah, I got disconnected again. Uh, it's stopping by itself for some reason. So I was discussing that the majority of gangs targeted are going to be those predominantly affiliated with African Americans. So that goes back to some things that those who may consider staying to consider. Um, it's very important that we as Black people begin to grow up and to begin to try to take a hold of our own destiny as a people. It's very easy for us to make money for other races through either working for them or patronizing their businesses. Um, but we have yet, on a massive or on a large enough level, begin to understand that the real money and the prosperity comes into ownership and support for your people. Black people, we have bought into this idea that of individualism, that stuff the country used to spout uh, like a decade ago or over a decade ago, that everybody in America is an individual. But as we can see now, the majority, there's no such thing as individualism when it comes to American society. Uh, the whites got all together to vote Trump in. The police all together support the guilty police. The Mexicans stick together and they rather hire and only work with Mexicans. The Asians stay to themselves. Everybody stays to themselves and they work their communities up by patronizing each other and working together. Once Black people get to that point of understanding that fact, that will be the only thing that could lead to our success and upliftment out of oppression in this country, would be to unite and put each other first. Then I can understand not wanting to go to Africa, considering the benefits that you will receive to take control of your own future elsewhere. But if you want to stay, that is exactly what you have to do. It's not a should, it's what you have to do. We have to become slightly insulated, not isolated, but like insulated amongst each other and dependent on each other and helpful to each other. One of the things I was discussing with someone was how easy it would be for the gangs in a particular neighborhood to purchase the abandoned buildings in their neighborhood. It's a lot of, in some neighborhoods more than others, but it's a lot of drug dealers of particular gangs who already participate in trade and financial transactions just on illegal level. But if they can flip that and put into a positive level, flip that dirty money for legal money, That's an easy and very direct and quick way to do it. Is to buy property right where you live, and you fix it up. If you don't, fix it up good enough for purchase, at least fix it up so that it's it's not a location where people can be hurt inside, whether by accident or through rapes and murders. A lot of that type of stuff happens in abandoned buildings in the black neighborhood, and those should be gotten rid of, and to keep out the junkies. That's the easiest and most immediate thing that the youth and even the adults can participate in the black community. It's extremely easy to get over this oppression that we're going through. Quite extremely easy. It just when it comes to showing up for the main event, black people seem to always fall just a little bit short when we are faced with the possibility of no longer being dependent on a race of people who we've been dependent for centuries on. And it just so happened that the people that we're so dependent on in many aspects of life hate us. So it's like a bad relationship. But like I said, getting over this oppression is extremely easy if black people just get their heads screwed on tight and get ready for manhood and womanhood. Sometimes it could just start off with lots of things in the inner city in the poor black communities. Start with one individual discussing it with a friend. Word gets around quick in the black community for gossip. We have to make sure it get around the black community just as fast. The message of liberation. I don't know what's going to happen, obviously, but I just know I don't like what's already happened and what I suspect is going to happen. I mean, you can just see the trend of injustices directed towards the African American community of this country, and the boldness of those responsible to protect us, and the boldness of the federal government, and the boldness of the average Caucasian American person. Another thing I was thinking about was if it was to be uh, pockets of clashes between the races, I don't think it's going to be like a massive nationwide outbreak of violence and, Armageddon for the entire country. I believe it'll just be pockets of incidents, some bigger than others, some more violent than others, but it's not going to, it's not going to be an asteroid from outer space type of catastrophe. And I wonder how it would happen, how it would go, who would win. I got a theory, considering the capabilities of the federal government and its agencies. I think that it could possibly be fairly easy for them to get rid of us if they wanted to. Well, you know, it'd be it'd be a fight, for a while, in my opinion. Perhaps something like Iraq or something in pockets, sparking up all across the nation. But when you go to, well, You know, the United States government love to fund both sides of wars, so they probably just keep it going, funding both sides, the black and the white, for fun and amusement, entertainment, economics, political, you know, motivations. Just all for show, while the regular white person and black person kill each other like animals and savages simply because we're a different color. I think I know, and many, you know, who are honest with themselves and who pay attention wouldn't be able to realize that it's not just a racist system and government in the United States. It's a racist system that's global. Um, there was riots and protests over in the United Kingdom. I think it was some places near London or in London. A black man got killed over there, and they were rioting over there today or last night. Uh, the young black man who got killed over there in Europe, he got beat to death a couple weeks ago. Black men who were in India and was nearly beaten to death by tens and almost 100 Indians over there. They were African college students. I guess they, you know, transfer students or however they do it. You have the color issue in Africa where, you know, they got that whole thing about color, light skin or who's darker and all that. I mean, this shit is global, man. Not to mention the racism that goes on through purposely economically oppressing nations whose majority population are dark skinned. That's the main reason why many African nations are in the economic situation that they're in, and the main reason they can't do anything to help us over here. I believe, and I know for a fact there are many African nations near and far. If they had the capabilities to uh, fight, if they had to fight, you know, United States, if they had to, you know, to get their people and to stop the murdering of us over here, I'm sure they would. It happened before. There's been lots of African nations who stood in solidarity with the African American. But because they are economically sectioned into, you know, a black hole, they don't have the capability militarily to do anything or economically to send things or to do things, you know, or they just fucking corrupt or don't care. Like, you know, a lot of people say an option for black people would be to get a piece of the United States, a part of a section of the country just for black people. And that's that's almost as stupid as staying. Well, you would be staying. So it is stupid because what's important and what needs to be done at the end of this conflict is separation. We just can't live, we can't coexist under a system of justice. So we should go our separate ways. They should make amends for what they did. I don't need their apologies. I just need you to do what you were supposed to do a very long time ago when you first let the slaves go. Give them reparations and that option to go back if they chose to, and your sincerest condolences for what you have done and what you continue to do. It's a goddamn shame that we live in a nation that can't even apologize for the worst atrocity in human history. That's a fucking shame. America cannot be the greatest nation in the world if it cannot apologize for its mistakes. A human being cannot be a responsible person if they don't apologize for their mistakes. So, a government definitely should not be allowed to get away with, that sort of juvenile attitude of not wanting to take responsibility. But, it is what it is. Whichever way it goes, it has to be resolved. I mean, it was meant to, you know, head in this direction anyway. Once they realized they couldn't keep us in bondage, they knew that one day they would have to do something about us. Well, my suggestion is to help the United States um, do justice by those who it has wronged, improve the image of America throughout the world, and give America the opportunity to actually be the country it claims to be, of liberty and justice for all. Until America does that, I don't see how any respectable government in the world can seriously look at America with any form of admiration. I don't see how white people, you know, as a majority, feel any admiration for the United States. One thing about the white race is that they love advantages that are unfair. How you have a cheater and you like this motherfucker cheated for no reason. You know what I'm saying? Like, why you gotta cheat? People cheat shit because they don't want to lose, and that's the position the United States has been in since they let our ancestors out of slavery. Either they let us be free and have liberty equal to them, and they lose, or they do what they can do to infiltrate black society to destabilize it, and they stay on top. You know, that's the American way, cheating. So that's why they do it, because they don't want to lose. That's why it was so hard for black people to get into sports with white people, because of the inferiority complex white people actually have. It's a very insecure people who would oppress another people who they say was inferior in the first place. Like, if white people seriously as a whole, like, do all their signs that may support them and their opinion of us being inferior, why do you have to go through so much to oppress us? If we're inferior, we'll simply oppress ourselves, and you wouldn't have to do anything. We'd just be, losers. But that's not the case. The case is that white people have always infiltrated and destabilized African American situations, whether it be organizations, uh, forms of small, local government, or businesses, or even a family. They go through extreme measures, and some not even know yet that they are doing to destabilize the black community. So that right there contributes to the fact that they honestly don't think we're inferior. But once white people, if I was a white person, subconsciously thinking from the outside looking in, subconsciously, I would know that the reason I'm oppressing African Americans is because I'm afraid that if they're let loose, either they're going to harm me, us, the entire white race as best they could, or they'll surpass me economically, or equal me, or just go too high that makes me comfortable, even if they're under me. I don't want them too close in the same tax bracket as me, because then they start feeling some type of way about what actually they have achieved, and then they have to go through this whole mental fuck thing that freak them out. That for centuries they said we were inferior. Then they'll be like, now look at these niggas. And then you have, that goes back to being wrong and not being able to say you were wrong about, something. That's a fucking, that will be a very devastating thing, I believe, for white people. It's like literally just coming to grips with their situation and why American life is the way it is will fucking make their head explode, if they was honest with themselves. No people inside. I don't care, if some people feel white people are the devil. I know they have empathy. I mean, they do for their pets and trees. So I know they have empathy for when they do wrong as a whole. It's just that the greatest wrong that ever done is just that powerful once you acknowledge that it could fuck your whole perspective on life and reality and all the benefits that you have would mean nothing. So. But to be quite honest with you, the now there are some extremely evil white supremacists in this that run this country. Ain't no doubt about it in my mind, and it's obvious. It's some evil people uh, in white society that dominate the world that are just pure evil. But that says a lot about the people too, the general, everyday person across the world. That so many of everybody's country, if not all countries in the world, are in one way or another uh, participate in things that are illegal even according to its own laws. I believe that if the black people who decide to go to a different country, we should stay away and shy away from creating a government. Once you have a government, not only do you open yourself up to infiltration, you open yourself up for just general corruption and the lust for power. A form of government that we should have should simply be a communal form of living where votes take place not for a leader but for judges in the community, the elders, those who have shown themselves to be that of good character, maturity, and intelligence and fairness. Preferably the older people who had many life experiences and not necessarily those who just got charisma and know how to talk well. We need to get past that. We need to look into substance instead, listen to the message instead of how the message is being delivered. That's what I'm saying. So we need to stay away from all forms of government like that, all forms of government. But I don't want us to forget and we need to remember that whatever we acquire in our new homeland and area, we need to find ways to protect it from outside aggressors. If you can't protect something, then you don't own it because it can be taken away from you anytime. We have to protect our pocket um, along with the country, the government of the country which we stay. Uh, we're going to have to get the corruption out, and have serious reforms in that nation, in whichever one we choose, about spending and budgeting and getting rid of that pledging or demanding that the European nations who have those particular countries under sanction lift them, totally lift them. slavery was a global racket. Many European nations and Middle Eastern nations too benefited from slavery, the slavery of African people. There are many Middle Eastern nations who also owe reparations to the slaves in their country, and some of their descendants are still living in their country being oppressed as well. That's not talked about much in the media, but it's there. I've seen it. Back to what I was going to do. I wanted you to hear this video by Donald Trump about the MS-13 and how he puts it like he's joking about how to handle, gang members. So he wasn't joking at all. It wasn't even very funny, but you'll notice that all the police behind him loved it. They loved the fact that they were going to more easily get away beating niggers because they had the sanctioning of the president. Here it is. Alright. Let me get this speaker closer. Man, this stuff. I got entangled so many things. Let me see. Alright. I had untangled the speaker. I'm gonna put the speaker close to the camera. I've gotta make sure it's not too loud and annoying. Let me see.
They have transformed peaceful parks and beautiful, quiet neighborhoods into blood-stained killing fields. They're animals. We cannot tolerate, as a society, the spilling of innocent, young, wonderful, vibrant people. But I have a simple message today for every gang member and criminal alien that are threatening so violently our people. We will find you, we will arrest you, we will jail you, and we will deport you. And when you see these towns, and when you see these thugs being thrown into the back of a paddy wagon, you just see them thrown in, rough. I said, please don't be too nice. Like when you guys put somebody in the car and you're protecting their head, the way you put their hand over. Like, don't hit their head, and they've just killed somebody, don't hit their head. I said, you can take the hand away, okay? We need more resources from Congress, and we're getting them. Congress is actually opening up and really doing a job. They should have approved health care last night, but you can't have everything. Boy, oh boy. They've been working on that one for 7 years. Can you believe that? The swamp. But we'll get it done. We're going to get it done. I said from the beginning, let Obamacare implode and then do it. I turned out to be right. Let Obamacare implode.
He was kind of making a joke that, when they put you in a police car, they hold your head so don't you hit your head on top of the car. But he was saying, move your hand, let them hit their head. Basically, don't be too nice to them, rough them up. don't worry about their health and their physical safety as a police officer. Do what you want to them. He sanctions it, but it didn't matter. They were doing the shit anyway. Now they feel even better about doing it. So yeah, we have to hurry up and get our shit together. So yeah, I'm trying to figure if we have enough time considering how everything's accelerating. Yeah, I think so. Black people, we are extremely resourceful. So um, it'll be a if that you know small pockets of civil war break out, it's going to be lots of fireworks, pretty entertaining, like an action movie. I'm being sarcastic, but yeah, like I said, black people are very resourceful people. So were the people of Iraq and Vietnam and Somalia and in Haiti. Those dozens of African nations that fought off the oppression of the European. They had very little compared to the European, and they did it because they were united and they knew who the enemy was. Now, if most we need as black people, we need to become honest with ourselves and realize that fact that these people have waged war against us. They've been waging war against us since they brought us here as slaves. You know, that was an act of war in itself. And then all the oppression and torture they put us through to this day. Man, I'm getting tired. But yeah, like he's looking for funding, he mentioned from government to increase the policing and the pretty much the weaponry and you know the budgets of these police departments so they can be more brutal and better armed and armored instead of just saying let's figure out a way to get the niggas out the country. It's not that fucking hard. They just they get a rush out of it. It makes them feel strong and superior. So that's why they're doing it. They need somebody to beat up on. White society are the biggest bully in the world. White culture. Let me see how this. That's even better. I should have did it like this the whole time. So yeah, it's a. It goes back to an inferiority complex the mass of the whole of white society globally feel, considering that they're such a small percentage of the global population. That's why they're so paranoid. They're outnumbered. I think that I think white supremacy is the biggest hindrance to world peace. It's not, you know, governmental policies that differ from nation to nation. It's the fact that the whole world is encompassed in the system of white supremacy. It's global. They have their hands everywhere. the majority of conflicts in the world are carried out by them directly or indirectly. One thing I have been wanting to say for a while is that with the whole Syria thing, is that I feel sorry for Syria because not because of their being attacked by the United States and Israel and you know other Middle Eastern countries, but that their biggest ally seems to be Russia. In my opinion, what's happening is that they're running from the wolf, which is the European here in Europe. They're running from the wolf to the bear. And either way, either they'll be destroyed or they'll be dependent on a European nation. I think it's all a game, and Russia's in the middle. Syria's in the middle. I don't think Russia is any better than the United States. They're a nation who also values uh, foreign exploitation and small wars, in their case, of border expansion. They're no better. Just so just so unfortunate what's happening to the people across this world because of this evil system. But like I said, it's easy to get over in the case of the global African. Um, Black people are in the billions globally. We're in every nation on this planet. Of course we are. We populated every place on this planet where there's human beings. But if black people here can get into contact with the governments of other African nations, and we can bring our case to the United Nations and it'd be a huge step in the right direction for true liberation and true economic development of African nations independent 100% of European nations. One of the reasons Haiti is so poor is because of the economic sanctions placed on them by the French and other European nations. Basically, they're taxing the shit out of them and put them in debt. So, because they got their freedom from them during slavery. So now they're basically paying a tax, or, you know, they're being put into debt so deep simply because they want their freedom. So they're paying foreign nations to allow them to be free. It's weird. So don't ever think that no one of any race on this planet ever say to you, a black person anywhere in this world, that your country is poor because your people are inferior intellectually. Don't let them tell you that bullshit. Don't let them tell you that bullshit. Things are the way they are because of the infiltration by foreign governments and corrupt leaders. The African people are the most resourceful people on this planet. They didn't come when they came to Africa during slavery to get us from Africa and bring us here. They didn't get a race of people who were just dumb. They wanted so many and they enjoyed it so much and they made so much money off of it because they was taking the people who was knowledgeable about field work and carpentry and every sort of, you know, act that we did during slavery to make it profitable for them. They got very smart. They got very smart people, high quality people. You know what I'm saying? As they would say when as their property. So don't let them tell you that shit, and don't let them tell you that they taught us how to use the shit that we was using and doing the shit we were doing. They didn't teach us shit. We already knew. We were doing that back home. So yeah, they'd say we had to teach the niggers, how to use a fucking plow. You were dumb then and you're dumb now, so accept your oppression because you're inferior. Because I would think if you could teach us, it would make more sense for you to teach. If you taught us, it'd be easier for you to teach your own people, your own fellow white people, how to um, build your nation up. That way you could also have stimulated the economies of your state. Plenty of jobs, plenty of revenue, prosperity, all that stuff. But the fact that these states decided that having somebody else to do it for you was better because they know what they're doing. That's why they knew what we knew what we were doing. And that was the problem when they released us from slavery, that so many of us were so skilled that if we entered their labor unions and their job markets that we would most likely outperform them. And that goes back to the insecurity of the white man. His subconscious acknowledgement of possible inferiority drives him to be erratic. But I'm finna get ready to end it and probably say, just reiterate and say one more time that we as black people get easily discouraged when white people decide to show their fangs, and they forget and they lose track of the fact that it wasn't them who led us out of slavery. It wasn't them who allowed us to flourish a little bit after slavery. It wasn't them who gave us the rights. It wasn't them who stopped the brutality of our people in the 60s. It wasn't them who created our communities and our majority marriage, population and the low numbers of children created out of wedlock. And it ain't them who's going to allow us to succeed and to grow now. All of those things that I've named and events happened because we just decided that we wanted it. He just couldn't stop us from getting it. And once we understand that it's us who have always got us a little bit higher out of the ashes of slavery, that at any point we choose to, we can get out of this oppression quite easily. So remember that. And everybody, thank you for watching and have a nice evening.